You're listening to the EdTechWorld.org podcast, episode number 2. Today we're talking about education and technology in primary education. So let's just get started. Hey everybody, this is Sasha here. Welcome to EdTechWorld.org podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The EdTechWorld.org podcast is produced every now and then. Hope you enjoy again. This is our second episode, and it can be found on EdTechWorld.org. Come back often. Feel free to share at the podcast to your RSS feed or on iTunes, and follow us on Twitter EdTechWorld.org or myself on @SayFun and on Facebook. The links to recording and show notes are always on the website. But now, let's get into the show with today's guest, who is Sarah. And Sarah is
an international teacher from the US, and I am living in Bangkok, and this is my 8th year in Asia.
Are you crazy?
Exploring all the crazy corners of the continent, and loving being in the international school world.
When did you come to Bangkok?
3.5 years ago.
Okay.
2012.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Almost as long as me.
Almost, right?
Yeah. Okay. Why did I ask you to join me?
To talk about EdTech.
Good teacher. Okay. Nice. And how are you into EdTech?
I guess after being in China for 4 years with pretty much no tech in education or with a lot of blocked technology, it has been a very quick uphill learning climb to work now in NIST, where we have a lot of tech integration and one-to-one iPads and tech coaches and a lot more. So I guess I've been learning very fast.
So the great Chinese firewall is a real thing?
Very real, yes.
Okay. So here's better.
Yes, it's still really slow internet, but it's much better than accessing everything behind a VPN.
Okay. Yeah, we have the single gateway soon, so it's gonna be more like China if you would stay here longer.
I know. Good luck for me.
All right. Yeah, so what's NIST doing cool stuff with like EdTech and
a lot, and it varies a lot from class to class, and especially from elementary up to secondary. In elementary, I think what's really exciting is the kids are natives with the iPads, and so they're able to record their learning and put videos up and blog about it, and they're tweeting and looking at Pinterest, and I can communicate with all of
So you're
tools.
using the devices actually for like class and for homework and for assignments?
Yeah.
And
They take them home they take the iPads home as well.
The NIST iPad.
The NIST device.
So, okay.
Yeah, in the upper elementary years they do.
Okay.
And then they can keep doing their blog stuff at home. We don't really have assignments. It's more, I guess, free learning at home.
That's cool.
So just do what makes you curious.
And then you have like pre-installed stuff on the iPads,
and
they cannot install stuff on them?
They can't because the password is all locked.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so they can use the applications that are on the iPad?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
There's a core list that's on every kid's iPad, and then you download whatever else they find and want.
Okay. How do you make sure that, they don't need to, but how do you make sure they don't steal it?
They sign an agreement in the beginning that they pay for it if they steal it.
Yeah, of course. Just want to hear it. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay. That's nice.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's really fun.
And do they really use it?
Constantly. Yeah.
And can you track how they use it? Like how they learn at home when they take it home or something?
You can. The history, to my understanding, this is probably more in the technician side, but to my understanding, the history is collected and it flags anything that needs to be flagged.
No, sure, but
like learning-wise?
Yeah.
Most of the things that they would do would be maybe like a math app, but that's tracked through the math app subscription. So that like SumDog is really good, and then we can just see their usage on that website, or like the Spelling City, same thing, the account-based things. Now, otherwise, they're not having to keep a log of what they're doing on the device.
Your school is getting cooler and cooler.
It's very cool. Yeah, I love it.
That's nice. Okay. I'm blown away because, like, from my experience at like Thai schools, does not happen at all.
It's totally different. I know, right?
Okay. What are your students like? Are they mostly Thai, mostly international?
I think we have a 30% cap on any nationality.
Oh, okay.
That's, at least when I was hired, that's what was communicated. I'm not sure if it's been updated since. But it's actually a really good mix.
Okay.
A lot of students from around Asia, but also quite a few from Europe, the Americas, Australia, New Zealand also.
Okay, cool. What's the coolest EdTech thing that you use with your school that you think that's worth mentioning besides using the iPad?
I think probably the biggest leverage point for technology and education is increasingly becoming the connection piece. Mm-hmm. So when a class is studying an author or about a video creator, they can actually Skype with that creator, and having that real audience is really beneficial for them to understand the content and actually have a purpose to create questions to then ask that expert who they already have some context for. I think probably the connections will continue to be the strength of the devices.
Okay. How does your school NIST, how do they come up with like those ideas for like EdTech use? Like, is it the teachers that give input? Is it the school? I know you have EdTech or coaches. Are the coaches that come up with the ideas?
Both, I would say. There is a really great EdTech framework that the coaches and with some, I guess, checking and input from teachers, the coaches have been developing the EdTech framework is amazing, and it looks at like communication and ethics and different parts of, I guess, digital citizenship. And that has a lot of pieces to it that you could actually, it's new still, so I'm still playing with it, but the best example I've seen of its use is actually figuring out where kids are at in the continuum from taking in information to actually becoming creators. Right. So I think that's really powerful from the tech coaches, the tech coaches, to be able to see where your kids are and then what actually is beyond that, because there isn't really a global, at least in international schools, there isn't a global curriculum for that, so it's pretty powerful that they've created something to be able to use.
That's actually a nice thing that there is no standardized curriculum, because then you can actually go create something.
Exactly. And there are, in the US, and other countries, there are different standards, but nothing fits, because our situation is completely unique, right? Yeah. The international school sphere is different from other areas.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you need to have standards, because then it's easier to compare schools and like achievements and so on. But on the other hand, I like when there are no standards, because then you have to go create your own. Yeah. And then like the limit is like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can actually adopt whatever fits your population best.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot about NIST. It's because the QIP framework, the primary year's curriculum, is just a framework. It's meant to be like that as well. Yeah. So, from math to language and tech, everything, it's kind of loose so that you can fit it to your students and where they're at and what they're curious about too.
Is there any like negative influence from technology on like the learning habits or outcomes of the students? They say they use it too much, or they rely too much on it, or back then when you only had books it was better. I don't know.
That would probably vary depending on who you ask, but personally I find that students are still annotating paper articles, but now instead of getting a newspaper that's inaccessible for a 10-year-old, now we can go to Newsella and find a text that has actually been adapted to different reading levels and print it out, and they can annotate that. Right. So it's still not necessarily all screen time, but it's still better because of technology.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I think there have been discussions about screen time. There have been discussions about addiction. I think that's another part. And I think it comes in more with gaming, in my experience, that parents are talking about gaming addictions. And because at school we say that this device is for learning, not gaming, that delineates it. It's not for that.
So for the people who listen to our podcast number 1, We talked with a student there, and she said like actually what helped her the most in terms of EdTech and learning something from a Thai student's perspective, non-international school, because she learned the most playing games.
Yeah, and that there are like the subscriptions that we have are game-based learning subscriptions, but not just pure.
But in this case, we talked about like non-educational games, like role-playing games.
Role-playing, but role-playing can still be educational, right?
It is totally, but it's just like from a non-EdTech company, from a normal game company, like a normal online game. Mm-hmm. But while you do it, you learn English, for example, or you learn stuff like that.
Yeah.
And does that fit into like the school framework, or do you say like that's something the parents have to be concerned about?
I think it's a weird crossover, actually.
Right. Yeah. No, it's difficult to actually steer it, right?
And I don't know, because I've seen in times where we've been looking a lot this year in my year level at 20% time, or that personalized learning where students are just working on their own curiosities.
Right.
And there's a part of me that is really curious about what goes on in a child's mind when, for example, they're using Minecraft, which Minecraft EDU has a ton of great opportunities for education. I still don't necessarily think it's worth all the back-end work to create the actual experiences that are basically simulations that you could do in a normal classroom.
I agree.
With a lot less work.
Yes.
So I'm still not completely on board with that, to be completely honest, but I like the idea of it. But there's something about when students are watching videos about how to play Minecraft and things like that, it's almost like they're watching TV and they just get sucked into this mindless intake again. And that's where that EdTech framework about, okay, you're taking in information, now do something with it and become a creator of something, anything. Yeah. And that's the part where I think that gaming in that sense is just mindless. Okay, but I agree there are a ton of great benefits to it, so I'd be curious to learn more about that actually.
Yeah. I think it's just difficult to actually like track, like okay, now my child is playing 2 hours. Okay, now we are old people, I say like World of Warcraft, I don't know any. So I just name dropping, or they're playing Dota 2, which is a cool role-playing game right now. So just showing that I know my stuff. Why are you laughing?
I've never heard of it.
it's the my students, my new media class, one group they presented about that. There's a tournament for this Dota 2, which stands for whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
And there's like a tournament, and it was in Germany, the World Championships, and the winning team, I'm not kidding you, won like $8 million or something. Yeah.
How does it work? You dressed up online? How does a role play online thing?
You go there and you play live. So there are like teams of like 4 or 5 people. Yeah, kind of like SimCity, kind of.
Old school.
And you have to like, you're building like your empire or shit. Sorry, shit out. Don't listen to me when I say shit. People. So when you build your empire, like and you defend it against your opponents, and I don't know.
So like then, Minecraft and SimCity crossed.
And then I just saw the highlight video. Then like they're like the two groups in the final. They're like in a kind of like a small dome, and then the winning team like a firework and like bam, and they got like checks for like $7 gazillion. When I thought, okay, I should quit teaching and maybe become a professional player. Then they showed me like the highest ranking, the earnings of the highest earners of this game. And on 3rd or 4th place, there was a 16-year-old guy from Pakistan who was like a millionaire. And you're like, okay, we're teachers.
They start calling as gamers.
So, no, but back to like the point being like it's difficult to track like whether or not your kid actually like learn something when they play games.
And I guess there are always the collaboration skills, and there's probably critical thinking and communication and all of those things as well.
But you can't really.
But it's hard. I feel like it's hard to separate what makes some games seem like interactive TV. And other games, really rich in building those.
I think it also
transferable skills.
Also depends on like the player, the user itself, the kid itself. Like how does it approach the game? I used to play like those 3D shooters, but not just because I